Okay, let's talk about other characters. I feel like we've dwelt on her a little while.
I'll bring up Skullman. Skullman is technically a character.
You'd think he'd be in it a little bit more, considering his name's on the fucking title.
It's the title of the name. He is not in it nearly as much. He's this badass.
It took him, three episodes to show up, and that was at the very end?
Yes, and then from episodes 3, okay, he's in it a little bit, and then he's not in it for 2 episodes. That puts us to, episode 5 of a 13-episode show?
Something
and
like
then
that.
episode 5 and 6 is kind of where he kind of becomes a bigger part, but he's still in it a third of the time in each episode as the side characters, even.
What they did try to do, and I almost give them a little bit of credit for this, it takes a little bit of balls to do this, is they named the show Skullman, and the Skullman's on the front, and then they kind of leave you without him for a little while, which I think was just kind of lazy setting development. But when they finally do introduce him, it's bam, he's a bad guy, and everyone was just like, whoa, I actually thought this was, this is different from where I thought it was going to go, and that was kind of nice. Having something that wasn't blatantly see-through.
I found this weird because I did some research on this. And Skullman, like I said, I'm pretty damn sure this was a manga written in the early 70s. People talked about him as this character was the original anti-hero. So the whole time I watched this, I was going, when is this anti-hero aspect gonna come in? And it doesn't come in until way late in the show. And I found this very interesting because the guy who wrote this wrote one of the most famous live-action TV shows in Japan. He wrote Kamen Rider, and they were actually going to adapt this into a live-action Sentai show where, with rubber monsters and all that.
Then Saban would have gotten their hands on it, and we would have had it over here as a kids show.
But they literally went...
Oh, come on, that would be awesome.
The original show, they went, oh, this manga's too dark and it's too violent. We can't turn this into a live action TV show.
Which it wasn't even really that dark or violent, I might add.
To its defense, though...
It felt so tame.
I'm talking about the original show, the original manga, the original concept. See, we watched the new interpretation of it, which, what I'm feeling, was not a very good one.
No.
And so, which is funny, because they did end up getting popular enough, the original idea, that it did get turned into a live-action TV show. Mm-hmm. Later on, it was just really bad CGI monsters instead of rubber suit monsters. But, so you have this really badass-looking character, which they did very minor changes to his costume. The costume looks cool. He rides the motorcycle. He has he's always carrying a weapon. Even iconic weapons, some you don't see every time. His weapon of choice was literally a German-made Mauser,
which was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah,
a nice little antiquated flair. But the thing is that once again, with everything else in this show, it started out with a cool concept, and then it just didn't implement it well. It was really executed really lamely.
Underplayed.
He would do all these things, and he was clearly supposed to be this sophisticated, antiquated guy by the German pistol, which added a nice little flair, and the ascot and everything. But then he would spew out all these random archaic lines that were from the Bible or Shakespeare or something before he did anything, and it always ended up really the final impression I got was that this guy was just a really, really lame V.
And he was also quoting a lot of things that was a plot point in the story about a book that had nothing but Nietzschean philosophy, which kind of made me it kind of was weird for me, but whatever. So he would quote these Nietzschean quotes like "God is dead" and "Be proud" and all this stuff like that, and it felt awkward.
It just ended up being convoluted bullcrap that made him more sophisticated than he needed to be.
I will say this. I do like, these kinds of people that have a flair for the dramatic with quoting these kinds of things. I think that's a cool character trait. I do agree it was executed perfectly in V, so I guess if we're going by that as the standard, then yes, it is a lame V. But in the case of the Skullman, I do kind of admire that they try and make him more of a presence than an actual character at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But when you give the guy such top billing that he's the only character you show in the opening, the guy better fucking be in the show.
Yeah.
But he's really not.
He's not.
And what he is, he's there to kill people pretty much.
I mean, again,
Really lame action
if you want to
sequences.
make him a presence in it, don't make, because it felt like, you showed me trailers for it.
Yeah,
and
AMVs
and
stuff,
all this stuff looked like it was all about. It made it look like it was all about Skullman.
Yeah.
So then when it wasn't, it was quite the weird turn.
Exactly, and that's what
So I just
funny.
feel like the execution. It's fine to have a character be more of a presence than a character that can make them feel bigger, larger than life, etc. They just needed to not then put him in everything and make sure we knew the focus was not on him necessarily as a character, but more what the events surrounding him.
I literally think that AMV that I sent you guys when I pitched this show, because I never watched. That's why one of the reasons why I wanted to choose this show. And I saw this AMV and I'm like, this looks badass. It looks like it has decent action. It has a pretty good looking art style. When the action was in the show, it looked cool. And so I literally think the person that made that AMV very craftily did it, where he took all the 5-minute segments that was literally all of the parts with Skullman in it and put them in an AMV. Made it look like that was those little bits and pieces you saw was the majority of it. So that kind of affected my viewpoint on the
perception
show.
of it.
Yeah.
Someone get this guy writing commercials for the next epic movie.
Okay. What should we move on to next? Pacing? We've talked about pacing. So
There are really no other important characters in the show. There's an
There's
old
side
man that's
characters.
kind of cool. There's
Who's
a
a
priest.
detective.
There's
Yeah.
this priest that was like best friends / like they were the paparazzi was a bully to him. There was a detective and
There was
none
a
of them
cop
mattered.
that was like barking down their throat every chance he got.
Yeah,
and they kind of played off of it. It wasn't really important.
They
to
were
the
all
main story.
forgettable, really.
yeah.
It didn't matter. You want to go watch the show and figure out characterizations, do that. But
Okay, so moving on to pacing.
oh god, worst part about this show, and that says something.
Yeah.
I'm no good with pacing. I generally just ignore pacing because I feel like it just happens or it doesn't happen. But dear God, so bad. First 2 episodes were nothing but really, really lame character development. After that, it was just like more lame
Exposition
character.
dump.
Right.
It felt like an exposition
Yeah.
dump.
And
We
then-
didn't get. I feel like this show. One of its main problems was it broke the cardinal sin of show don't tell.
Yeah.
Because all it did was tell. I felt like the first action sequence, like legitimate action sequence, didn't happen till like 3 episodes in.
And it was
Yeah.
funny because before then it was all just completely natural, normal paparazzi stuff. Is this Skullman thing a real or a hoax? And then all of a sudden, action sequence out of nowhere with
Bam,
angels
monsters.
and
A
werewolves,
tiger thing,
and it was stupid.
It was weird. So and that kind of plays into the tone thing.
Yeah.
So like the first action sequence comes in episode 3, and when you have only 12 episodes that you're working with.
No, it was 13.
Oh, sorry, 13 episodes. Still,
yeah.
13 episodes. You don't have a lot of time to dick around.
Plus,
And they did a lot of digging.
yeah.
It felt like all they did was dicking around.
And literally, I kept on, like, when I would watch this show, I'd be like, oh, great, I have to watch another 3 episodes so I could finish the show for this review. And literally, a lot of my time, it's like when you're in school or at work or something, and you're just working with someone you just don't like.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly their fault. They try to be appealing, but they're just you're annoyed by them.
Really,
So
that says
you're
it all.
literally, you feel like you're like, okay, I'm done with this episode. Okay, move to the next one. Okay, I'm done with this episode. I could take a break now.
It was a chore to watch. I sat down to marathon this fucker for the review, and I was watching One Piece and Scooby-Doo after about 2 episodes. I was just like, fuck this shit. I want to go watch something that's fun.
I literally, I watched a couple episodes and I'm like, oh look, the Wolverine. Oh look, the Wolverine anime is out. I'll go watch that instead. So it's exactly like I had the same problem.
Well, overall, the pacing of the show is shit, and I think it's really a shame because I love mysteries. It's one of my favorite, and this looked like it was going to be a mystery after episode 1.
Yeah.
You know, I saw episode 1 and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the investigation of Skullman. Oh, okay.
No, it's a thriller. No, it's an action. No, it's a cult classic. No,
the tone jumped around a lot. And
it's a horror.
And it needed to show more. It needed to let the investigation just go. It needed to be less scenes of people in a room talking, then move to another scene of 2 people in a room talking, move to another scene of 2 people in a room. 3 minutes of action. Go! Talking.
Sometimes they were in cars talking.
Okay.
When I read the plot synopsis,
they had exotic locations of talking.
When I read the summary of the show, when I picked it, I literally saw cool, decent looking action, a Seinen-esque story, so it's going to be dark and interesting, a mystery, and superheroes. That sounds badass.
No, all of this sounds good on paper. It's just
but
very
the execution was just so bad, and a lot of that was because of the pacing.
Yeah,
So we move on to art.